Thursday, February 3rd, 2022. I just want to talk about a couple of things that probably could be filed under injustice, if you want to label them together. Um, Over the weekend, I watched the Janet Jackson documentary that was on, I think, Lifetime and A&E. Um, and oof, um, it's kind of sad. She's an extremely talented and very smart woman, and her entire life is sort of lived in the shadow, or under the specter of a man. Um, at least her career is. Um, Starting with her father, who was, famously, possessive and demanding of his children as artists, and it seemed pretty clear that she was kind of scared of him, um, and and freely admitted that the only way she could get away from him was to get married, which is why she got married to the DeBarge guy when she was a teenager. And who knew? She got married in Grand Rapids, where the DeBarges are from. Um, you know, in the mid 80s, when she was a teenager, I was just an hour away living my little life in that tiny little town. I don't even think I had to draw my driver's license yet, but she was left alone in her hotel room in Grand Rapids, and I could have entertained her. Anyway, so she married that one who ended up to be a drug addict, and she was still making poor decisions based on what other people wanted, um, and and trying to compensate for all of his shortcomings and addictions. And then her brother, her whole career, once she made it on her own with the release of the Control album, that comparison never ended for her, with her and her brother, even after he died. And I think it even got worse after that. But so her, and then the next husband, who was a manager control freak, who was sort of molding her career and directing her videos, and he referred to him as an extension of Janet, and it's like, that's and the way people talked about that relationship is that it was, you had to go through Renee to get anything with Janet, and it was just like, that's not healthy. So a father, a brother, two husbands, and then even Justin Timberlake, like, she's takes all the heat for him ripping off her little nipple covering, which I still don't understand. It seemed at the time that was rehearsed, that they knew they were going to do that. They're still saying that that wasn't planned. But then why did she have the big jewelry covering her nipple if it wasn't planned to be? I don't get any of it, and I don't get why people were so mad. It was a breast that was covered with a pasty. Like, it's not, you can see that much boob in a dress. I don't know. I don't get it. I never understood why that was a thing, nor why she was. I do know why, because it's sexism and racism. She was the dirty black girl who bared her breast at the Super Bowl, and that just fucking sucks. And we won't even get into Justin Timberlake getting away with it. I think he's been bashed and apologized enough for that whole era and the Britney thing and all the stuff. So, I just, it was sad to watch, because there's so much talent and so much drive, and just, she seems like a really, like, a genuine nice person. You think of the Jackson family as a little bit of a freak show, but uh, she seems very level-headed, very self-aware, and all of her career has been just under this umbrella of men, which stinks. Um, so that was my takeaway from the Janet documentary, which I do recommend watching. It's very interesting. Um, Although they never discussed the last marriage, the one to the billionaire guy who she had a baby with. They didn't talk about him at all. They talk about the baby, but they never mentioned this marriage, which where there was rumored that that was only done for money and whatever. That was a little odd. And then the other thing is this in the NFL, the former Dolphins coach, Brian Flores, is suing the NFL for discrimination. And part of it comes from a text message conversation with Bill Belichick, who is the coach of the Patriots. And the New York Giants have been trying to hire a new coach, and Flores was supposed to go interview with them. And before his interview, Bill Belichick texts him and says, "Sounds like you've landed. Congrats," meaning the job at the Giants. And that the guy that they actually hired is also named Brian, but Brian DeBole, anyway, who used to work with the general manager when they both worked in the Buffalo Bills organization. So the implication here is that that the Giants had hired DeBole, but yet we're still going to interview Flores, and Flores is taking that as they're ticking the box off of what is called the Rooney Rule in NFL. That the Rooney Rule is about making sure that there is diversity and representation in the interview process for, I assume it's coaching gigs. And the conversation, Belichick clearly is saying, "You've already got the job," and he's like, "I'm not interviewing until Thursday." But so the idea is that Belichick already knew that the other guy got the job, and they're just lip serving the interview with Brian Flores, who is black, to sort of meet a quota. And so he's suing the NFL and the Giants for basically racial discrimination, and good. He might be ruining his career as a football coach, but it is remarkable that there's so few African American men in coaching positions in the NFL when that entire industry, I don't even want to call it a sport because it's an industry, is built on the backs and the brains of Black men. And so we talk about this whole thing going on with the Supreme Court, where Biden is saying the next Supreme Court justice is going to be an extremely qualified candidate and a Black woman. And the stupid fucking Republicans all up in arms. It's affirmative action. It's insulting to everybody else. Blah blah blah. Again, not realizing that and the whole thing about identity politics, which I don't even want to get into because all of it is identity politics. And the point being that that whole brouhaha about people being mad about the insistence upon representation to fill an open position, and then not understanding that the reverse is true. There have to be a myriad of qualified, capable former players, because that's what a lot of the former players become coaches, that or within the coaching ranks, that um, that could be filling head coach positions in the NFL, but just aren't. And Tiki Barber was on TV saying, I know these owners, they're not racists. I've worked with them. But it's not. You, you don't have to be, an outwardly black hating um, person and display those um, outward qualities of racism and still not be a racist. um that And it happens in hiring processes all over the place. People want to find people that they see themselves in to work with, right? And it's that whole inherent bias that comes with us, that you have to be aware of to overcome. And I don't think any I don't necessarily think when Tiki Barber is talking about these owners and general managers aren't racist, I I believe that, but I don't know that they are necessarily working to understand and to be aware enough uh, of looking at candidates that are outside of what they think of when they think of a head coach or an offensive coach or a defense coach. So it's that there's a term for it and I can't think of it. Um, but it's an ingrained subconscious bias that comes out with um, you know what seemingly become racist outcomings. But anyway, good for him. People need to shake this shit up. And the NFL is, I mean, they're literally destroying the brains of their athletes willingly, and there doesn't seem to be really any effort whatsoever to help the long-term effects on their brains. So that's also shitty. The NFL is shitty, although I do like a football game. It's like Spotify. Damn it. Why do they have to have that shithead on? Because they're such a convenient service. Like Amazon. Damn it. It's such a convenient service. Why do they have to be so terrible to their employees? Anyway, that was a whole milieu of injustice that just came out of a couple of things that were on my mind. Happy Thursday.